Very good afternoon to you. If you're just joining us, well, let's go to Mpumalanga now, and that is where the premier of that province, Refilwe Mtsweni-Tsipane, recently reshuffled her cabinet, firing at least 4 of the MECs after months of infighting. Joining me in studio is our senior politics reporter, David Mabuza, and the former Deputy Justice Minister, that's Thabang Makwetla. And on Zoom, we also have Sizwe Samayende. He is a senior reporter, senior journalist at the City Press newspaper. Let me thank all of you for making time to talk about the issues in Mpumalanga. But before we do that, I promised Mr. Makwetla, because you also are an NEC member, someone who also led Mpumalanga for a long time. But I want to take advantage of the fact that you are an NEC member and you have been listening to Suprabha Mapilo addressing a branch in the Northwest Province. Firstly, your thoughts about whether he should be addressing an ANC branch at a time when his membership has been suspended.
No, thank you very much, for inviting me to your studio. The situation that Comrade Suprabha Mapilo finds himself in, it's not an easy one, for the simple reason that he is a very important point of reference in his province as far as ANC political community is concerned, but the broader the province as well. And here, he has been found, at least from what the IPC, the provincial interim committee there, he has been found to have been on the wrong side of the organization's guidelines. Of course, there are two things he is managing. He's managing the people who are behind him and who see him as a point of reference. He's got to give leadership to them. But at the same time, he has to, as a senior member of the party, make an effort to make it a point that he makes the party leadership deal with the issues that the party considers to be a problem in his province and that he is part of. So he's got to navigate those two roles. One, he has to keep the momentum of the people behind him, but at the same time, he has to do things, I believe, in such a way that he could still be a credible cadre when he sits before the leadership organs that will judge the recommendations of the IPC.
You've gone the long route. You've gone the long route of trying to justify why Suprabha Mapilo is addressing an ANC branch when, in essence, he should be suspended. What does a suspension mean when your membership perhaps ceases momentarily? Do you still have the right to address an ANC branch?
No, of course he doesn't have. That's the other challenge which he must address. If he wants to be or to remain a credible cadre, a credible leader, as far as the ANC is concerned, the right thing for him to do is to cease fire. He has got to stop doing what he knows the allegations are based on. That he is continuing, of course, it is because of the pressure of the people that he is leading, but he knows that he can't eat his cake and have it. That is very clear.
All right. Well, on that point, let's transition then and speak about the Mpumalanga province. Zianda, you were there recently. Just paint a picture for us briefly of what you have found. That province is expected to go to a conference where they're going to elect a structure of the ANC. This is after David Mabuza went to national back in 2017 and leaving that province without a chairperson. Am I painting the picture correctly?
Well, in essence, yes, that's correct. And when I was there, firstly, I think the sense that I got from the people I spoke to was that you know, Mabuza was leading the province with an iron fist for so long. Everybody knew where to toe the line, how to toe the line, and they understood his leadership style. And that when he left in 2017 to become deputy president, that in essence left a vacuum to such an extent that everyone now believes that they could become chairperson of the Mpumalanga ANC.
So how many contenders are we
Well, there's 5, but there could be more.
For the position
well,
of chairperson.
The position. You've got Mandla Ndlovu, who's the acting chairperson, who David Mabuza left his shoes with when he left the province in 2017. And I say it like that because we'll talk about the sort of shadowy figure that Mabuza is said to still try and play in the province. But we understand now, you know, there's a shift now to almost try and shake him off from the province. Then you've got Refilo Mtsweni-Tsipane, who at some stage was said to also have been Didi Mabuza's favorite to take over from him. And you've got Lakin Dinesa, who was the provincial secretary of Mabuza in 2015, but he was not re-elected at that particular conference. You've got Deputy Minister Fish Mahlalela, who's also now being touted to possibly take over as a leader. He's seen as an elder in the province. And then you've also got someone like David Dube. But it seems like the main contenders here are your Refilo Mtsweni-Tsipane. You've got Lakin Dinesa, who's now on the lobby group called Undue, which we understand is also being supported by Mabuza. And then you've also got then the acting chairperson, Mandla Ndlovu, who is also on the ticket, who was previously an ally of Mabuza, but not so much anymore. And so it's against this backdrop, I think, that, you know, people have been saying that there's an attempt now to move away from the leadership of Mabuza, to move away from what some say is an undue influence that Mabuza plays. But Mandla Ndlovu, when I interviewed him, he denied this, and I actually put this together. I want us to hear what Mandla Ndlovu had to say.
Okay. We don't have bogus branches in Mpumalanga. Immediately after Nasrec, the ANC took a decision, even here in the province, that we're going to align all our structures to government structures in the province. We have got 400 wards and 400 potential branches of the ANC. We have got 1 sub-region, 1 municipality, 1 district, 1 region. So we don't have bogus branches, we don't have bogus structures in the province. I don't understand. Maybe those that are saying that we have got bogus structures in the province, they must come out and tell us, because I don't remember also our own structures complaining to us that we have got, or members of the ANC complaining that we have got bogus structures in the province.
So that's the interim provincial chairperson of the ANC in Mpumalanga. I want to bring into the conversation now Sizwe Samayende, and he is a senior reporter with the City Press newspaper. He joins us virtually from Mpumalanga. Sizwe, thank you very much for also making time to speak to us. You're the man who really has kept the pulse as to the temperature in Mpumalanga as things lead towards the provincial conference. How would you describe Mpumalanga politics right now? And I want you to infuse in it, as we have just listened to Mandla Ndlovu, infuse in it the whole issue around the step-aside rule, which is expected to come to effect anytime soon now, in terms of people actually stepping aside.
Well, Tolly, thanks for having me, and let me greet your viewers as well. As we build up to this conference, well, I must say things are hot, tensions are there. But basically, you know, it's a conference where actually it's still about Didi Mabuza to a certain extent. I'll tell you why it's that. Since he left, there's been this vacuum. And when he was the premier and the chairperson of the ANC in the province, it was not sort of clear who is the successor. So that's how he managed this. So now, as you know, that there are 5 people who are contesting the chairpersonship. It's basically Undue, which is pro-Mabuza, and the rest are against Ngci. That means the rest, they don't want to be associated with Mabuza anymore. They want to kill his legacy in the province. So to simplify the conference, basically in this province, the upcoming conference, to simplify things, break them down, it's about, do we still continue with Mabuza's legacy, or we get rid of it? That's what it is about.
Mabuza's legacy, and interesting, at the beginning of your response, you said that he still looms large in that province, although he has since migrated to national. What kind of a legacy did he leave behind in Mpumalanga?
Well, it is debatable. It is debatable. You cannot say for sure what kind of legacy he has left, because some of the issues, obviously, they are legal issues that are sub judice and so on, But generally, he left a province that is divided. He left a legacy of saying that people who are dissenters, who do not agree with him, they do not belong in the ANC. They cannot occupy leadership positions in the ANC. Mm-hmm. Everybody who's got a different view must be shut out of the leadership of the ANC in the province. Mm-hmm. I think in general terms, that's what he has left behind. In general terms, he has left a very divided organization in the province.
And his legacy in government, just briefly?
His legacy in government, not so good, with quite a lot of corruption allegations flying around. There have been cases opened with the police, but let me say up front, they have never linked him, although certain things happened under his leadership as a premier, but he has never been directly linked. Yeah, but when he was premier here, the provincial government had a bad reputation for rampant corruption.
Sizwe Samayende, all right, let's pause there for a moment. And just before I go to a break, I want to get your quick thoughts, Mr. Makwetla, on what has been described by fellow journalists that you are listening to in this conversation. At party level, Mabuza left a divided ANC. State level, well, corruption was the name of the game. Well, I'm told that let's try and get your response after this short break. So hold that thought. And when we return, we're also going to be joined in this conversation. It's quite a big conversation we are going to have here. We're going to be joined by the secretary of the province in Mpumalanga, that's Lindiwe Njalinjali. There she is in picture. She's also going to weigh in this conversation. You're watching Newsfeed, the weekend edition. Very good afternoon to you. It's 5 o'clock and we're doing things a little differently today on Newsfeed, the weekend edition. No headlines because we are deep in discussion around matters that plague the African National Congress. We're focusing in on Mpumalanga because there is an upcoming conference, elective conference that is, in that province, and as you know, with ANC conferences, there is always contestation. So let's get straight into that. Mr. Tabang Makwetla, who is the Deputy Minister of Defense, but you're also an NEC member in this capacity that we are speaking to you. So you've heard the comments from Sizwe Samayende. He talks about a divided legacy, or divided ANC rather, that has been left by David Mabuza as chair of that province for the longest time. Also, in government, his legacy as premier, issues of corruption front and center. That includes issues of murders in that province. What is your reaction to a legacy that gets painted in this way, particularly as someone who also led that province yourself? You were the premier there between, I think it was 2004, all the way up until 2009.
Well, it is now and again very tempting for us to treat the challenges of Mpumalanga as peculiar to what is happening in our country. But we must always not lose, in my view, the context. These are national challenges. It's only that in our province, the way they play themselves out, it was with the kind of rigor and intensity that we experience now and again. The coming provincial conference, for me, it is good that we have close to 5 contesting, candidates for the chairpersonship of the province. It's a good thing. It's democracy. However, of course, what would be a concern to everyone who's an observer is that, the name of the former chairperson of the province gets thrown in now and again in relation to candidates who must just be independent contestants in what they have a right to participate in. Something is not right there if the allegations are true. The party in our province should be judged in the context of what the ANC post its last national conference sought to achieve, which is to renew the party and to unite its members. What is happening in relation to the coming provincial conference should be viewed against that background. Are we in Mpumalanga succeeding to live up to the sentiments of the delegates who gathered at Nasrec in 2017? That's, for me, the most important thing. I have always made this point that the ANC is a movement of the people. And once it ceases to be controlled at all times by communities and representatives of communities, activists from communities, once it stops being controlled by that power, but you have another power center controlling the organization, then the whole thing is malfunctioning. And it is what, in my view, would make our beautiful democratic dispensation, our constitutional democracy, to lose meaning. Because, there would be, unavoidably now, an ecosystem of power within parties, which is not democratic, but because our political system recognizes representation of people through parties, it would make parties to be very bad entities in the value chain of our democracy.
Let's bring into the conversation Lindiwe Njalinjali. She is the acting provincial secretary of the ANC in Mpumalanga. Ms. Njalinjali, thank you very much for your time. As we build up to the provincial conference of the ANC that's going to elect a new leadership in that province, how much of an impact would you say the step-aside rule is having on that province? And I'm asking you this question specifically because you have been in the news recently about a list that has been drawn up from Mpumalanga that has long been submitted to national. What's the temperature right now as things build up to this conference?
Thank you very much. To make great yourselves and your guests, let me say my temperature is very cool, very calm, because these are ANC processes. Once we start to take these processes very calmly and that these are organizational processes and not personal, you will become. And we have called on all our structures from the branch level, region to province to say, be calm, follow the processes as we move towards the conference. Coming up on the issue of the step aside, like we are saying, I've been up front to say, yes, we've submitted. Remember these matters of step aside, the implementation part of it started last year. but there were no guideline or framework to implement. Because as secretaries, we must implement, but we know that we must be thorough. Because the resolution of conference was 2017, but the implementation starts now. But you did not have guidelines until 2 months ago. Where do you start the implementation of those that are charged? Do you start 2017 when the conference resolved? Do you start when there's guideline? Do you start now? So hence we're saying, let there be clarity on whether we go retro or we move towards the current members that are charged. Yes, a list has been submitted because remember, we call on all our deployees and our leadership, whether you are in the BEC, in the REC, in the PEC, in the NEC, and whether you are deployed as a councillor, you are deployed as an MP, MPL, you must go for a process where you go to the police station, you get that clearance. So it will pick up whether you have cases or not cases. And as per the guideline was saying, that person, if there's a cloud hanging over that head, that person must come to the integrity committee or the official, come and explain yourself. And then the ANC will advise you on how your participation should be in the ANC. If it's serious matters, you should step aside. Some, they can engage on that. But what we have come across since we've started this process, there is a lot of cases open against comrades. There is a lot of not doing justice to this process. People will just open case, they change your name. After that, the case is thrown out. You have stepped aside. You've got members in the NEC, in the PCs that are charged previously, and some of them are still sitting in those meetings. So where do we start? Because if we're saying anybody that has been charged is before court must step aside, it means all of them must go and step aside. But where do we leave the Constitution? Because the Constitution say you are innocent until proven guilty. Hence we're saying as provinces, let's relook into this matter. If it means taking it back to the NGC to say conference took this decision and the implementation thereof, it tramples on the Constitution. And there's a committee that is led by Comrade Zwelim Kiza, which look into these nitty-gritties as per the Legal and Constitutional Subcommittee.
Ms. Njalinjali, can I interrupt you for a second? Let me interrupt you for a second, and it's quite deliberate in that we have an NEC member sitting in studio here with us, and he is part of this very decision-making that has come as a result of, or that has come to be known now as the step-aside process. They are the decision makers there at the national structure. Is there a specific question that you would have for your fellow comrade sitting here in studio, but who obviously leads the party at a national level?
I can't have a question to Comrade Tabang because as provinces, we sit with them in the NEC as ex-officials, and we have participated and we have expressed our views. Hence, we're saying we feel that we are a bit in a hurry because we're saying as provinces, of all the recommendations and resolution of conferences, why do you want to pick this one up? So there's no question, but we sit with them. He knows our views. We've engaged, and he has expressed his views. But at the end, democratic centralism take its course as there is a resolution. But let me correct you to say it's a decision of the NEC. Remember, these are recommendations and resolution of conference.
Indeed.
But the implementation, the NEC will come in and will come in as we outline how we do it. Hence, we're saying, let us be thorough, because if we implement, it cannot be the entire NEC. The SGO will have to implement. The PSO, which at the provincial level is the secretaries at the regional level. Hence, we must be correct. How many cases were taken to court, reviewed, and we lost? So hence we're saying, let us be thorough, let us be advised, because it doesn't mean when it's an upper structured decision, you cannot check your blind spots. That is where we are.
All right. We're going to come back to this step-aside rule because I'm sure you're anticipating a question around that. I want to bring into the conversation back our colleagues, the journalists that are sitting with us here. Ziyanda, the interim secretary of Mpumalanga is saying the temperature is very cool, but you probably are going to tell us different because of the recent cabinet reshuffle that was implemented by the Premier. Did it ruffle some feathers?
It absolutely did, Oli, and the reason why it did is because of the people then Refilwe Mthweni-Tsipane got rid of in her cabinet. For the most part, it was actually the former chairman David Mabuza's allies. I'm talking about Pat Ngomane, I'm talking about Gillian Mashilo, and that many in the province will tell you was the biggest indication that there is a shift to try and get rid of, like I was mentioning earlier, what some have described as the undue and shadowy influence that Mabuza actually has on the province. And in fact, it's also an indication of the fallout then between Mthweni-Tsipane and the deputy president. Hence, as Sizwe Samaende was saying, it's a pro-Mabuza, a lobby group in the form of Ngci, and everybody else in the form of acting chairperson Mandla Ndlovu, Refilwe Mthweni-Tsipane, and all the others who are running to become chairperson in that province. Now, it's also interesting then, the issue of the cabinet reshuffle is also linked to the issue of branches. We've seen violence breaking out at Mpumalanga BGMs, and I'm glad that you've got the acting secretary here, because when I was in Mpumalanga, there was actually a meeting that was held by National, led by head of organizing Nomvula Mokonyane and Deputy Secretary General Jesse Duarte, where a decision was taken to suspend all BGMs for 7 days while National investigated the issues that were being raised by the branches in that province. And in fact, Lindy Njalinjali has also herself had to respond to claims that she's a part of creating bogus branches in that province. So the temperature is not necessarily cool. In fact, I would actually disagree with Ms. Njalinjali. There's nothing that is cool going into this province.
I will tell you this much. She is smiling because I'm sure she wants to respond, but we're going to stick it in just a little bit more before she gets her chance to respond. Sizwe, very briefly before we go on a break, you are the man on the ground every day in Mpumalanga. We speak to you in Mpumalanga right now. Ziyanda paints a picture here that branches in that province, the campaigning or BGMs, they had to be suspended because of violence that simply was uncontrollable.
That's true. Ziyanda has got that right. And we must remember that people have also died. You know, last year when these BGMs began in March, just before the lockdown, somebody was beaten to death. There are other people who have been stabbed. There are other people who have been shot. So we cannot really say the things are normal. This can't be normal. It's abnormal, and the tensions are really there are tensions. People have died.
Sure. All right. Well, when we return, we're going to have Lindy Njalinjali respond to the direct accusations that she may be among those who are behind fictitious branches that may or may not exist in Mpumalanga. We don't know. We're also sitting with an NEC member here in studio, Tabamba. We continue this conversation in a moment. Very good afternoon to you. If you're just joining us, I am in conversation about the state of the ANC in the Mpumalanga province as that province prepares to go to conference to elect a new leadership. And accusations, they come flying at a time like this in the ANC because it is somehow something that's become the norm. But Lindy Njalinjali, the acting secretary of that province, would want to dispute it. But before we throw to her, let's just have a listen first to, I think, a person who was a branch member who was interviewed by our journalist, Ziyanda Ngcobo, and they were speaking in reference to issues that plague the ANC as the province leads to the upcoming conference? Let's just have a listen quickly.
The NSC must disband the province so that the neutral body can run the PEC, the province, so that everything will run smoothly.
So last week and these videos that are going around with the violence, what were you fighting about?
The videos which were running around Nkomazi or around the media, the social medias, are the bogus secretaries and the membership which are trying to do the wrong thing, sitting in cameras, making blah, 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 blah. That's what
so in other words, you're saying they were trying to set up bogus meetings and bogus lists.
Yes. The leadership in province, the acting provincial secretary, that's the one.
Who, Lindy and Chalinja?
Yes, who mandated them to do the wrong things.
How is she telling them to do the wrong things?
She's just giving them the letters at night, 8 o'clock, for instance, 7 o'clock, the branch is sitting without any pre-PGM. Before I can go to the PGM, we must have a pre-PGM. So all these processes were not done. So we're happy that the NEC is saying it will go around us, around all the sub-region, and start afresh.
Well, that's a branch member of the ANC in Mpumalanga, and let's just go straight to her to give her the right of reply before we come back to studio. Ms. Njalinjale, you are being accused of being behind bogus branches that are being created in Mpumalanga. How do you respond?
I must let me start by saying those allegations were leveled against me and by a branch member who happens to be the speaker of Nkomazi. One, I cannot have bogus secretaries because I don't reside in Nkomazi, and every branch elected us. But let me come to that, why they thought they were bogus branches. You know very well that I was assaulted in the RTC when we're realigning the Hlanzeni region and Buhlabela, because our constitution of the Republic and of the ANC says we shall be aligned in terms of the government demarcation. So it means one district, one region. And then you have one sub-region, one municipality, one ward, one branch. So the comrade that was speaking from Ward 1, they have created bogus branches. That is 1A, 1B. And NEC took a decision to say we must realign those branches to be one because they are in contravention of our own constitution. So when we realign them, you had two branches that had executive. You've got a 15 that was from the BEC of 1A and a BEC from 1B. Then a decision was that we take 15 members from each branch. It means it will be 5, and then we club them together, and then you add the others to be a task team. And that task team must prepare for the branch conference, which both branches had to submit their membership, consolidate, clear whatever that is coming out of that membership. So the problem, since 2018, I've written letters to the structures to realign as there was a decision. Some were against that, they resisted the change. And as you have seen in that meeting when the comrade was speaking outside, the NEC was there to deal with the violence that erupted in Nkomazi. But they came, they are asked, they are not briefed properly why we were there. And because people, they think anarchy, abnormality, insulting people without verification of facts, it's okay. But we've been patient. We have gone now, I think it's about 3 or 4 meetings with Nkomazi and its leadership. Now they understand. And now there's a decision that was taken by the NEC and the PEC in 2018. We are going to definitely have one branch, not A, B, C, D, because it means it's unfair for other regions. They created extra, and it's what we were calling bogus branches.
All right.
That I have bogus secretaries. The new membership system, it requires a secretary of a branch or a scribe to be trained on the new system so that it accepts members as they join, as they renew. It points them to the VD from the branch. So here you had two secretaries from AB who claim to be both secretaries, and they are contesting that space. So my PEC took a principled decision to say, if a chairperson is coming from A, B will provide secretariat. So those are their things that we are going to deal. And we had a serious meeting with them also on Friday. They were clarified. There is a task team from nationally that will be helping us to go through these processes. And the mistake that they've done to say Lindiwe has written letters at night, bogus meetings, they did not understand the membership system, the new membership system, the portal. They were claiming those meetings are the meetings of the secretary, Lindiwe Njali. And what I was doing, the new membership system gives a role to a branch secretary to load an event that is your pre-BGM, a BBGM, and a BGM. And then the branch secretary will print the register. And from the level of the region, the regional secretary also can observe that, and at the level of the province. So once there's programs, the provincial secretary will deploy PEC members to go and observe those meetings that are run peacefully in a manner that is supposed to be. But the Nkomazi did not understand the system, hence they put the meeting on the cloud system, which is just for reporting.
We've got you. We've got your explanation. Thank you very much. Mr. Makwetla, you're an NEC member. The conference credentials are a perennial issue in the ANC. Every time the party goes to a conference, whether it be a provincial conference or a national conference. In your view, when you hear the state of affairs there right now, do you think that province will hold a successful conference?
Let me first start by saying clearly that two important decisions that were taken, very critical for the survival of the ANC at the last national conference in 2017, is the resolution on managing integrity within the organization. The second, similarly important resolution was the resolution on establishing an independent electoral commission within the organization, within the party, that will take responsibility for all processes that speaks to electing individuals into leadership organs of the party, but also when we elect representatives that must go into government legislatures, that must go into our legislatures during general elections. It is important that the ANC has that kind of authority that removes or that relieves the elected leadership organs such as the NEC, the PEC, the REC, and as you go further down, relieve them of the responsibility to be running this process. Why? Because there will never be a time where there are no allegations and counter-allegations or processes being manipulated by those who are in the RECs, the PECs, the NECs. That's why it was important that immediately after conference, this was one of the resolutions that we should not have wasted time in implementing. Just alongside the Integrity Commission to establish an independent electoral commission. In that situation, the difficulties that Comrade Lindiwe was sharing with us now would have been ameliorated, would have been very much reduced from where they are now. So the question is the coming provincial conference in Mpumalanga going to bring about unity? It's a big question. It's a big question because it has a bearing on whether these processes are seen by the ordinary members as free and fair and not manipulated. That is why it is important that the NEC of the ANC must give capacity to the Independent Electoral Commission of the party and give it the machinery to assist to run these processes and not leave it to the provincial secretary, who now, you see, as you can hear, people are even unfairly, blaming her for things that she has not done. But if this process was run by an independent authority within the party, it would reduce the tension.
All right. Let's wrap up this conversation. Sizwe Samayende, you get to have the last word. You have covered a lot of issues in Mpumalanga, particularly around corruption. In fact, there was an attempt, if memory serves me well, where you possibly may have been bribed if you were, a weak journalist, but that didn't come to pass. With the departure of David Mabuza from Mpumalanga, do you think that issues of corruption are going to be a thing of the past as that province tries to usher in a new leadership that is, as you have been saying here, both you and Zianda, that the province is trying to shake itself off the shadow of David Mabuza?
Yeah. No, actually, it's difficult to say that issues of corruption will be a thing of the past. Well, because, it's not only people associated with Mabuza or whoever who have been implicated in corruption. Other people have been implicated in corruption, and they are campaigning on the slate that says we don't need the legacy of David Mabuza in this province. So the issue of corruption, just about everybody from the different factions in the province is implicated or might be implicated. So we cannot say for sure that the corruption that has been happening in this province is because of David Mabuza. I think one important point about this is that it has always been allegations that there is corruption because of David Mabuza's leadership style. But as an individual, he has never been charged. He's not attending court or anything. So it's difficult even to pinpoint the corruption and attribute it to him. It's a difficult one. Yeah.
All right. Sizwe Samayende, a senior reporter at City Press newspaper. Thank you very much for your inputs. And as correctly you point out, it's always been allegations around David Mabuza is doing this, he's doing that, but never has he ever been charged by any law enforcement agencies. I want to thank you very much for your inputs. I want to thank Lindiwe Njalinjalo, who also joined us virtually, the acting provincial secretary of the ANC in that province. Thanks indeed for your time. And I want to come to studio and thank you, Mr. Makwetla, the Deputy Minister of Defence. But importantly, for purposes of this discussion, you were joining us in your capacity as ANC NEC member, but also importantly as someone who once led Mpumalanga. Zianda Ndlovu, our senior politics reporter, thanks indeed for tracking down to Mpumalanga and at least giving us a sense of what we are going to be facing as that province prepares to go to conference. That's where we're going to leave that conversation. Coming up, we unpack some of the news that are making headlines on the front pages of the Sunday newspapers, and I'm going to be joined by the deputy editor at the Sunday Times, Mike Siluma, and he's going to be sitting alongside Sibuse Zongalwa. He is one of our very own, our politics editor here at News of Africa. We want to stay tuned for that. You're watching Newsfeed, the weekend edition.